Okay. Hi, I'm Gary Smith. My wife Betty and I spent Christmas and New Year's in Egypt. We both came back with COVID. We're out of quarantine, but we have residual medical problems. Betty has a persistent cough despite treatment with steroids, and I have voice issues, which I hope are not distracting. The assignment is to make the case as to why the concept of Western civilization is relevant for today. My response is Western civilization is definitely relative, particularly in the area of economic viability and defense against some really bad actors. Furthermore, it can be argued that Western civilization is a continuum from the past to the present, and unresolved issues that existed in the past may still be relative today. An example is African slavery. The overwhelming view of modern Western nations is that slavery is an anathema. However, it always wasn't so, and Western nations participated in the slave trade. One example was the Royal African Company, which was created specifically to engage in the slave trade. The company was set up in 1672 with the backing of Charles II of England, his brother, the Duke of York, and other well-heeled royal family members and English notables such as John Locke. Capturing slaves and bringing them to the Western African coast was done by Africans. Shipping them overseas was carried out by Europeans. And this is a modern day map of Africa, and the slave trade was largely conducted in these areas right here, which is of course the western coast of Africa. William Wilberforce is a member of the English Parliament in the 18th century, led the movement to abolish the African slave trade. Every year since 1787, Wilberforce had put forward a bill to abolish slavery. And finally, in 1807, Wilberforce was successful, and his bill passed overwhelmingly to abolish the slave trade. The American Civil War crushed slavery in the United States, and President Abraham Lincoln believed that slavery was the cause of the Civil War, which he spelled out in his second inaugural address and delivered on March 4th, 1865. Lincoln stated, 1/8 of the whole population were colored slaves, not distributed generally over the Union, but localized in the southern part of it. These slaves constituted a peculiar and powerful interest, and all knew that this interest was somehow the cause of the war. Daniel Hannan, author of one of our texts, Inventing Freedom, How the English-Speaking People Made the Modern World. He writes that what distinguished the English-speaking nations was not that they practiced slavery, which they did, but that they crushed it. While slavery was a dead issue in the United States after the Civil War, Jim Crow was not. Jim Crow laws were state and local laws that enforced segregation in the southern United States until 1965, which were dismantled as a result of Supreme Court rulings. In the aftermath of the death of George Floyd on May the 25th, 2020, which was the cause of massive protest, Confederate monuments were removed in many areas in the South. And as an example, Monument Avenue in Richmond, Virginia, previously displayed monuments to the leadership of the Confederacy to include Robert E. Lee. All are now gone. Groups in the United States have apologized for slavery and racism. I was a member of a Presbyterian church in Columbia, South Carolina, that did exactly that. The church, founded in 1795, was active in antebellum times and during the Civil War. And the church leadership voted unanimously to remove the names of pastors from church buildings who were ardently supporters of slavery and secession. Also, the leadership of First Presbyterian Church confessed the sinful failing of the church in the past in regard to slavery and racism. Reparation to African Americans for harm from slavery is a subject that continues to be discussed in American Democrat Party circles. Undoubtedly, the issue of reparations is something that's not going to go away anytime soon. Thank you very much.